I would like to introduce our first speaker for today, Jess Van Bank, Head of Marketing and Brand Strategy, Leap Gen. Jess, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kat. It's okay, that happens all the time. Yes, I am Jess, and I am from Leap Gen, and I'm so excited to be with everybody today. Thank you to Human Resource Executive for hosting this incredible webinar, and I'm so happy to be co-presenting with my partner in crime, with Jason Averbook, our CEO and co-founder. Hi, Jason. You have to unmute yourself again now that we're live.
I think they mute me just because they don't want me to say anything embarrassing. Hi, Jen. How are you? Oh, I mean, Jess. Jess, how are you? I'm going to call you Jen.
It happened at least 3 times, I think, in all of our webinar history. Hi, Tracy. Who else did I see? Sarah.
Padma.
Welcome, Sarah. Jana, Padma. Thank you for joining us. I love that we're already using the chat. If you have ever done an event with LeapGen, with Jason, with me, you know we're a chatty bunch. So please keep saying hello. Tell us where you're joining from. Hi, Julie. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Julie.
Jason, we've got a really, really cool topic today. When Human Resource Executive asked us if we wanted to talk about empathy, I said, yes, yes. How many times can I say yes? But for a particular audience, for empathy for a specific segment of the labor market, shift-based workers.
Yeah, just before we go further, can we just talk about the people that are here?
Look at these.
We have Princess.
Where's Princess? I missed
Princess is here. We have Kiana from Barbados.
I love it.
Like Barbados. We have Jolynn from Connecticut. Vancouver, Michigan. I love the way Emily spells her name, E-M-A-L-Y.
Nice.
Ingra, Veronica, Ray. Wow, cool group.
You guys are cool. I'm assuming you're all cool people because you're here to talk about empathy too.
Kia ora, Amanda from New Zealand, Renee from Colorado, Kim from Ohio, South Africa. Wow. Nice global group here.
Trish, yes, I love it.
And then we just have Amy from Wyoming. Boring Amy.
Where in Wyoming? I've explored the corners of Wyoming. What a beautiful state. Laramie, wonderful. Look at this group. We're going to have some...
Here's a 56-year-old cool guy.
From where, Tim?
From P. That's all we have is P. Tiffany from the Big Easy. Jersey in the house. Oh, PA.
Yay. Nice.
From Houston. Awesome. So, Jess, the reason I interrupted you is because one of the big things about embedding empathy is like actually thinking about knowing who people are. And like I love taking time to just look at these names and have conversations with people because that's one of the most important things about empathy is realizing that the people, the humans that you're addressing, you actually try to show that you understand them and get to know them a bit. Like Deirdre from Texas or Justine from Boston. Like that's a huge part of empathy. So like the fact that we're getting to present about that today, amazing.
I love it. And one of the primary questions we get around empathy when we talk about the workplace and the workforce is, can you really do it at scale? We're going to talk about that today too. Yes, you should. Yes, you can. Yes, there's framework for this. Yes, you can be empathetic at scale, and you should for your workforce. They not only need it to thrive and be productive and effective and efficient at work, but they deserve it. Like we're talking about showing empathy at work.
And then one more question before, as you switch slides. Can you beat a 56-year-old cool guy?
I hope so.
Okay, good. Just making sure, for Tim's sake, just making sure.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Welcome, welcome. Again, everybody, I'm Jess. and this is Jason. I think we've covered our intros. We're going to tell you a little bit about LeapGen in a second, but before we get too far, I do want to thank, again, Human Resource Executive for sponsoring this webinar and creating all of these cool people who want to talk about empathy today. And I specifically want to thank our sponsor, When I Work. I was really excited when I heard about the sponsor for today's webinar because they are right here in our backyard, Jason, in the Twin Cities, based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was aware of these guys some time ago, actually, when they first founded their business and started developing this solution, which is to help the shift-based workforce be more effective, productive, communicate better, get better communication and information from their leadership, and literally just manage their work lives better. So what a great, great sponsor for today's conversation.
I completely agree. And if you just look at that, schedule your workers with empathy. I forget the agility part. I mean, that's important also, but schedule your workers with empathy for happier employees. Like, what a key to the world we live in today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy. Yes, we get to be happy at work. And we'll show you how to get in touch with When I Work if you want to hear more about their solution. But thank you again for sponsoring this topic and this conversation. So just to level set around what we're going to cover today, so you know why you registered, what you're here for, you are going to get these slides. You are going to have the playback. You'll have the playback hosted by a Human Resource Executive on their website. We're happy to provide the recording as well. So everything you see, everything we talk about, we're happy to follow up and provide to you. We are going to cover the state of workforce empathy. What's actually happening? How are workers feeling? What do they need? How are workplaces challenged to respond and deliver? We'll get to that. We'll also understand the shift-based workforce. What is it? What verticals is this? What industries are we talking about? What kind of work do they do? And what are their unique challenges? Don't assume the same solutions apply to all workers everywhere in every type of workplace. There are unique challenges for this segment of the labor force, and if you're going to better serve them, you have to better understand them. So then we'll get to 5 ways you can better serve them, and that's partly by designing solutions that can help bridge transparency gaps, bridge empathy gaps, just better communication and design, leadership, trust, all of those things are important when we talk about empathy. Jason?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Right. Let's have some fun here.
I love it. Jason, will you better orient people to LeapGen and who we are, why we talk about this stuff when we help enterprises design solutions for their workforce?
Yeah, so just really, really quick. I mean, we're a management consulting organization that's focused on really helping organizations design and transform their HR functions for today's what we call now of work. Okay? There's a difference between the now of work and the future of work. The future is going to happen in the future. Today, we live in the now. And over our 5 years of existence, working with over 150 organizations around the world, what we find over and over and over again is that people create and design HR processes, systems, tools from an inside-out lens. They design them for the HR department and then push them onto people, which is not empathetic at all. Instead of how do we design and pick technology that starts with the worker and then benefits us in the people function. So that's all we do is help organizations think about transformation. And as the world continues to evolve, which it does, and we're going to talk about how change is our strategy, not our enemy, the goal is how do you come up with a strategy, which is the number one area that we focus on. How do you then deploy that strategy? Part of deploying a strategy might be the implementation of technology, like where I work, and then how do you sustain that? The run, optimize, and innovate. Sorry, so where I work, when I work. So strategy, deployment, and sustainment. When we think about what we mean by digital, and this is a really important point, so many people just jump right to the technology. Hey, we have to be digital. Guess what? We have to go out and buy something. And guess what? You may. And there's a high probability you might need to. But in order to be successful with technology, you have to think about how do you be digital, not just buy technology. you have to have a coordinated mindset. You have to understand your audience. Like designing for Volker, coolest name in the world, versus designing for Yvonne, who's an 80s rocker, may be different. And guess what? We need to understand that. Designing for Justine in Boston is probably different than designing for Deirdre in Texas. We have to understand that, which means we understand our people. Then how do we create journeys that are engaging, that drive engagement, not enragement? Engagement, not enragement. And then we can pick technology and deploy that technology, implement that technology that meets Yvonne where she is with the big hair. But what we have a habit of is just taking technology and pushing it out to everyone, using HR Speak, and hoping that they use it, only to say, this didn't meet our needs, and the technology didn't work. That's what we as an industry have to change. Can I have a heck yeah? Sorry, I didn't mean that. I was like, wow, I'm really preaching.
We're at a rock concert now, an 80s
yeah, exactly.
Rock
But
concert.
that's what we're trying to change, and that's what we want to talk about today, is how do we improve our understanding of our people and driving empathy into our design.
So I'd love to, Jason, carry that conversation a little bit further. We already used a few buzzwords that might come to mind for you too, but I don't want to make any assumptions. I don't want to make any assumptions that we're all talking about the same thing. Let's actually pause here and talk about what is, I think we all understand a dictionary definition of empathy. We could all probably rattle something off that's pretty close, but what does empathy at work look like? And what does it feel like? What are we actually talking about here? So we're going to play a little exercise. We can bring this one full screen too. A couple ways to use Menti. We want to get input from you. How very empathetic. We want to hear from you. Go to menti.com and there's a code you can punch in, or just hold your camera up to the QR code and punch in the code there. And you can give us some terms, some phrases, short words. What does empathy at work mean to you? In other words, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What might it look like as a policy or a practice? We'll do this little exercise together. Or put it in the chat. That's the other way to talk with us. Put it in the chat. Let's see, I'll put in one word. And Jason, do you have a way to pull up the, I forgot to prep you for this part, the word cloud.
Oh, sure, I'd love to.
You're using your login here. You can just, and we'll share this with you, by the way. We'll swap out this slide for the word cloud that you create as you're submitting your responses. I'm getting a few reactions in the chat as well. Understanding, that's awesome. Reacting, so not just listening, but acting. That's reacting. That's awesome. Being sensitive. I love the word sensitive. I think it's a misunderstood word. And responsive. Kindness. Michelle is saying code not found. Hopefully. Are you getting some good ones?
We have quite the cloud here.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Would you like to stop sharing and I can share real quick?
Yeah, Kat, can he go ahead and share his screen? Kindness. Yes, I think Jason will be the one to show that. Listening, thank you, Ray.
You have the presenters right now.
Great, thank you. I will share it in one
Available, I love it. Ability to sense others' emotions, active listening, acknowledging, patience. I love all of these. Let's go ahead and see what we have a really big group on this webinar, so this should be a nice word cloud.
Yeah, this is a t-shirt as soon as I can share it. Can you see that?
Yep. Ooh, look at this. Connection, listening, of course the biggest one, understanding. That's great. Caring, flexibility, support, responsive, lots of compassion and compassionate, consideration, responsive, amazing. Care.
I like some of the edge. I like some of the edge. Belonging, cognizant, keeping in touch, fair treatment, world bigger than work, walk a mile in my shoes, being understanding, belonging, genuine, sincerity, nice, game plan, see my side of the coin. These are going to be awesome. It's going to be so fun to share this with you guys. And
It's a
you guys can use the same exercise in your organization. Because when people say we need to add more empathy or you're not as empathetic as you need to be with design, go back to this. Mm-hmm. Ask yourself if what you're deploying truly is empathetic.
Yeah.
Good exercise.
Yeah. Thank you for your input. I mean, look at how easy that exercise was. We didn't make any assumptions that we're all having the same conversation. We're talking about the same thing. We asked you. You tell us what empathetic feels like, what empathy feels like. How often do employers really stop, really pause to say, you tell us what flexibility looks like?
What Dom, giving grace to everyone.
Grace, what a great word. So when you design workplace policies or programs or systems or tools, like this is the challenge, stop and ask. We want to make a flexible work policy around fill in the blank. What would that look like to you? What would that feel like to you? What would it feel like to do that thing, use that thing? It's such a simple challenge. Don't be afraid of input. Don't be afraid that you can't please everybody. Ask and make sure, use people as your sounding board. Make sure something would work for them. That's who you're designing for, after all. So empathy at work, we just crowdsourced this. We just created a beautiful word cloud around this. But if you really sort of look up, how do we do this as technology providers, as solution providers, as policy and program administrators? Empathy at work is the intersection between user experience. I know we hate the word user, Jason, but there is such a thing as UX design or user experience, customer experience, which everybody cares passionately about, and employee experience, which everyone is doubling down on, trying to attract and retain workers that can help keep your business moving. Empathy at work is really the intersection between all of those things. If you don't make work easy for people, their job doesn't need to be easy. We can do hard jobs, but it should be easy for me to fulfill the responsibilities of my job. The job of an employee, the simple job of being an employee shouldn't be so difficult for me. I want to focus on my actual job responsibilities. So that how it feels to get work done, how it feels to connect to leadership and my coworkers, to go about my day-to-day tasks and responsibilities, obviously that impacts how I'm able to serve customers. And we spend a lot of time designing customer experience, not enough time focusing on employee experience, and we often confuse that with user experience, how I interface with tools and systems. Jason, what would you add there?
Well, I want to take Ginger's comment. Like, this is where I wish we were doing our little Friday thing. We're going to have to talk about our Friday thing with everyone, because Ginger, I would love to have you on we do a Friday meetup with 2,000 people every Friday. I'd love to have you on. But I wish software companies paid more attention to users. What I want to say to that, Ginger, is, and I'd ask the whole audience, is it the software company's job to pay attention to your quote-unquote users? Software companies design, and they have to design for the lowest common denominator. And Ginger, your job, I assume you work for an enterprise organization, is to take that design the last mile and make it feel like something that your humans are going to accept. I think so often we say the software company's job, it's the software company's job. It is the software company's job to a point. But the biggest reason that employees don't feel engaged with software is not because of the software. It's because they don't understand the value of them using the tool, the value of what's in it for them. And if they did, all of a sudden, they would shift from being users, quote unquote, to being humans. that would feel that empathy that you're trying to drive. So I think it's really, JCK, sorry, that's a Jack. Oh my gosh, my eyes are getting old. It's a custom suit. You wouldn't wear a tux or a wedding gown off the rack. Most will need it altered. And I'm not saying change the software necessarily. I'm saying make sure that the message, Ginger, is this is the software, but don't ever call it software. This is the solution to make you, Mr. or Miss Employee that we care more about than ever, as productive, as successful, and as cared about as possible. Guess what? All of a sudden, they'll say, wow, we feel like a human instead of a user, and it won't be as much on the software company. Sorry to rant there, but if you're waiting for a software company to meet your people where they are, it's not going to happen. The software company's going to end here. You're going to be over here. You have to take it that extra mile because only you know your people.
Jason, to help paint sort of paint the picture, the difference between all of these things, have you ever been to a coffee shop?
Yes.
Have you ever been to a coffee shop where it was almost like you weren't even there? The people behind the counter serving you were so busy involved in their employee conversation and whatever drama was happening behind the counter, or they were trying to figure out, something. They were literally so wrapped up in doing their job that they weren't doing their job by talking to you.
Did I text you at 5:15 this morning?
That's what I mean when I say it should be easy for me to do my job. I mean it should be easy for me to serve customers and to produce customer satisfaction. It should allow me to stay focused and in the moment and to do that job, not the job of trying to figure out what happened to my shift tomorrow or why my paycheck was wrong or is tomorrow a company holiday.
Yep.
That stuff matters, but that part we should make super, super easy and clean and transparent and communicative for people. So we've talked about this, what we think empathy looks like and feels like at work. Let's get some stats. I love stats. I love chasing down numbers and data and facts.
Hey, Jess, while you're going in to do that, will all of y'all put in the chat whether this is helpful so far? And if you have any questions, Jess, go ahead. But
yeah,
everyone, engage. Empathy is all about engaging also. So please let us know.
So there's
some questions. Go ahead.
And all of these stats are cited, well sourced in the deck that you're going to receive, and they're pretty current. I also believe that anything that's too old these days probably isn't relevant or pertinent anymore. So that's the other thing about empathy and listening. It has to be sort of real time and relevant, just like these stats. So this is all very current information. 1 in 4 people, average worker, 1 in 4 people believe empathy in their workplaces is sufficient. That's pretty bad. That's pretty abysmal. Where it gets even worse is the next one. 25% of people think it's sufficient. 82% of people would quit their job for a more empathetic employer. So does this stuff matter? Does this topic matter? Why is registration so high for this webinar? Why are you all here today? Because you're feeling this pinch. You're feeling this pain. People are saying, this doesn't feel right. This isn't good enough. I need more. I expect more. And they would quit if they haven't already. So you're feeling the pain in your workforces. But what's really interesting to me is that everybody agrees. CEOs agree. Yes, 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 we agree. 72% of CEOs say the state of empathy needs to evolve. We're self-aware. We recognize that workplaces, employers aren't doing enough to show empathy, to design work for people. But yet, 70% of those CEOs say they find it hard to show empathy in the workplace. That part is the conundrum to me. I feel like we need to have this conversation. We need to do this word cloud exercise with those CEOs. Why is it so hard to demonstrate empathy in the workplace? And I think that little definition game, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Where does it show up? In programs, in policy design, in the way we architect systems and tools, not for the HR users or for the system administrators or the people looking at the dashboards and running the reports. Stop designing solutions for them. Start designing solutions for the workforce, the people it actually impacts in the day-to-day doing of the job. I mean, that's the true shift that needs to happen so that 70% of CEOs who say they find it hard to demonstrate empathy at work understand exactly how and where we can have the most impact.
Hey, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people asking where the stats are from, so maybe you want to, I know they will put them in the deck, but if you want to put them in the chat, I want to take a couple of these questions that have come in and tie them together. So Crystal said, hoping to hear a little bit about the culture building and employee retainment in a difficult hiring season. Natasha said, how do we show empathy when an individual always has excuses? Natasha also said, how do we show empathy without digging too much into the personal lives? I just want to talk about that because those are great, great questions, and there's more questions. Whoa, we got bombarded with questions. But just to take that for a second, so the question about how to hear about culture building and employee retainment in a difficult hiring season, showing that you know people, that you're listening to people, and you're personalizing your responses to people does a ton in culture building and employee retainment. So don't send out the annual employment survey that's tone deaf that says, Dear Employee. Don't send out the annual engagement survey, and it's the same for every job because every job's been different. Don't assume that the way people worked 2 years ago is the way that they want to work today. Natasha, how do we show empathy when an individual always has excuses? Natasha, those are not excuses. Those are people. We all have excuses, but those excuses are not excuses. It's understanding where those roadblocks are. Excuses are roadblocks, and that basically means it's hard to get something done, so what do people do? Say it's too hard. It's an excuse. Or they don't show value. So the way that you show empathy is to meet them where they are, not where you think you should be, but where you think they are, and to provide value back to them. Ginger said, I think it's hard for them to be empathetic because of staffing shortages, and they're thinking they're at the bottom of the line. Understand. What makes this conversation specific to shift workers? Kitty? Those people, more than ever, want to be understood. Those people, more than ever, are willing to switch jobs. Why? It's not specific to shift workers, but it's focused on shift workers. We're going to talk a little more about that in a second. But we have to be more agile than ever because those people change faster than ever. Can empathy be taught? Amy, I'm just going to stop after this one, and I'll turn it back over to Jess. I mean, we are humans outside of work. Humans by nature are empathetic. Now, someone can argue with me. I know it's going to happen that they know people that aren't empathetic. But for the most part, we are empathetic outside of work. And our job going forward is to bring empathy into work and to accept it and to make sure that everything we do reinforces those empathetic behaviors. Padma just said the last 2 years have driven people to the edge and the patience and tolerance is running low than all times. Yes, that means we need to provide an empathetic cushion for them. Michelle, if your people feel like they care for you as a human, they're more than likely to bring their best selves to work. Totally agree. Diane, respect goes a long way. To pay respect to someone means you need to understand them. So that's the concept of building personas. One of the number one things we do at LeapGen is build personas. Why is it? Because people don't understand how their people want to be, how they want to work. It's not by job code. It's by the way that they work. If you meet them where they are, and Diane, you'll go to the map for them by providing them experience and tools that meet them where they are, guess what? They'll go that extra mile, which is going to drive customer sat, and as you go to your CEO with whatever the measures they have, it's going to drive that. Okay, why is this important now? Because guess what? Shift workers are leaving their jobs more than ever before because they're not feeling cared for.
Yeah, and I think going to the mat, Diane, your comment, absolutely. I think this boils down to, and this has always been true. This has literally always been true. But during the pandemic, when safety, well-being, when everything that we knew and that felt safe and comfortable, when everything was threatened, we literally just need to know that our employer has our backs. So trust and empathy, if you're going to rebuild the workforce, if you're going to attract talent and keep the talent you have to rebuild trust. Even if you had trust before, wasn't a problem. You have to rebuild trust because everything broke around us. And you have to do that by extending tools and listening and sentiment analysis to understand where people are at now and to provide appropriate accommodation, solutions for everything. Changed, too much change to make any assumptions. And so it's really about showing people you have their backs, but specifically you have their backs now. And think about all the churn in the workforce. You likely have new or returning employees who came back to the workplace, or you're dealing with a constant churn in your workforce where this is an ongoing, this isn't just a one and done. This is an ongoing way of working and to operating that you need to get used to. And some of the comments earlier in the chat, yes, this is new. Yes, empathy is a new leadership trait. But again, this is the differentiation is key. 82% of people would change jobs for a more empathetic employer. They're looking for leadership, communication, trust, accommodation. They're looking not to get fired when their kid gets COVID at school, like I saw earlier in the chat. They're looking to know that their employer has their backs. That's empathy at work.
You all better show up on our Friday meetups because this is the most amazing audience I've ever had. Or not most ever, but huge. Princess, what happens when you're the only empathetic one and empathy falls on one person? Princess, the way to scale empathy is through digitization. A lot of people say, how do I scale me? We have to think about how can we digitize in order to do that. Okay, we have to think about how do we digitize. That doesn't mean buy a bunch of technology necessarily, but how do we make people feel good? And digitization can help with that. Okay, I love the other comments that are in here. And I think we'll share at the end how to get connected with the Friday meetups, or I'll put in the link if I can stop talking for a second. But so, Princess, I mean, the other thing that's really important is that there are a lot of people, and I think this is what Susan meant, a lot of jobs aren't prepared or don't want to deal with this. I don't know what exactly that means, like don't want to deal with being empathetic. Oh, thanks, Jess, for putting the link in there. But if you have people that don't want to deal with being empathetic, well, I better not say what I was going to say, but they probably don't belong in your organization. Mm-hmm. Jess, thanks for putting the link in there to the meetup. Y'all join us. We talk about this every Friday. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Jenny, I saw your comment about Starbucks. I saw that too. I saw a couple of things in the last week, actually. One is a video that went viral on TikTok. Maybe some of you have seen this. A store manager at Dollar General had never, ever posted about Dollar General in her life. She was on TikTok. She was a user, but she had never said anything, never posted anything about her job at Dollar General. She was a longtime store manager, top 5% of store managers in the company the year prior. And a couple weeks ago, she posted a video that went completely viral. You can all find it. Just Google Dollar General TikTok video, and you're there. And she had finally had enough. She was actually responding. She was a happy employee, top performing manager, loved her job. That's an important thing to know and remember. And a customer complained about what it was like to shop at Dollar General. Why is it so messy? Why is there so much inventory sitting in the aisles and not on the shelves? This wasn't a very great experience shopping here. And she was so frustrated because there was so much that was outside of her control, and her ability to do her job well and create the right shopping experience and serve customers in the way she wanted to. There was so much that was outside her control that she lost it. And she went on TikTok and posted a bunch of videos. That's why empathy matters. That's why happy employees want to better serve your customers, want to do right by the company, want to have their employer's backs if only the employer would have their backs. And so back to the Starbucks comment, yes, the same time I saw that viral video by a Dollar General store manager, I also saw Starbucks with their CEO back at the helm pose 3 questions to their workforce. I know I'm off on a tangent now. We're off the slide. 3 questions to their workforce. I just found them. Number 1, what is the kindest thing the company can do for you right now? This is Starbucks, massive shift-based workforce. What is the kindest thing the company could do for you right now? Second question, if you were to build a store from scratch today for Starbucks, one that is joyful and fun to work at, what would it look like and feel like? Third question, what is one thing that Starbucks could do for you that would make you even more proud to be a partner? Look, 3 questions, 3 really simple questions. Kudos to Starbucks. Do you catch some of the words? Kind, joyful, fun, proud. Those are incredible, incredible questions to be asking the workforce. Talk about listening and showing empathy at scale. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you should do it.
Jess, we're going to do this as a Friday meetup.
Oh, my gosh. Clearly.
Michelle said, would love to learn how to support my field workers when they're essential and can't benefit from the same things that knowledge workers are benefiting from, which, by the way, they shouldn't. So, but Michelle, that means we're creating a persona for your field workers, making sure we specifically understand them. We're doing work with McDonald's right now on this. Specifically understand them, and then how to drive capability, tools, benefit to them to make them, not only support them, but to allow them to thrive. Maggie, who said that she has the same challenge as well. So I think that's really, really important to keep in mind. And it means we have to change the way we do technology, though. For those of us, once again, that just do a peanut butter spread and push out to the same thing to everyone, it's not going to work going forward.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm catching up on the chat now that I'm done talking about Dollar General and Starbucks. You guys, every employer is trying to figure out how to do this. Every employee, if this seems challenging, if this seems like too lovey-dovey, can we really talk about loving people and caring people, designing work in a way that works for them? You absolutely can, and you absolutely need to in a candidate-driven market. You need to. But you can and you should. And Jason, this is how we connect the dots to digital. Being a digital organization is the only way to show empathy at scale.
Right. And digital doesn't mean it's just technology, you guys. Remember the formula? What do you want to create? The strategy. Understanding your people. What's the journey to reach them? And then what's the tech? Okay? Very, very important. Very, very important. If you could design a store that would be joyful and fun to work at, what would it be like? Great question, Diane. And I mean, that's work we're doing with Lululemon. Are the people at my work kind? Do I have joy coming to work? Get a good mother of 8 kids, understanding her kids, creating opportunity. Great one, Yvonne. So when we think about this, what does it feel like? We have to understand design. And one of the things we talk about a lot, and give it to you guys as a recipe. By the way, Jess, a lot of people are asking for the Starbucks questions.
Yep, I'll find it for you.
So.
Yep.
Design considerations. I hope all of you are experts in design thinking. If you're not, very, very important to understand. And a key consideration from design thinking are personas, are journeys, but even more important is thinking about this concept of designing for the empty chair. When you're designing, have an empty chair next to you. Look at that empty chair and say, yo, empty chair, does this make sense to you? Is this going to help you? That empty chair should be that employee in the field that we're struggling to hit. Engagement, not enragement. So many people are not engaged with how to get something done. They go to your portal or your intranet. They say, I'm having a baby. Nothing pops up. What do? They get enraged. They call. No one calls them back. Then they leave. I want to focus on how do I shift from just getting people to adopt tools to become addicted to this is the place I go to get answers. Don't worry about them searching. No one wants to search. They want an answer. In, out, done. And it was built for humans, not HR people. That was a little bit of a joke. HR people are humans. HR people will say, oh, you want to add a dependent. Humans say, I'm having a baby. Same thing, yet two different languages. And it's really, really important that we're designing for them. If we know how they think and how they act and how they talk, guess what? We can design for them. If we don't, our HR speak, like effective date. Jess, when's the last time you were on an effective date? No, forget it.
Yeah.
Effective date is oftentimes a technology thing. Yet an employee doesn't know what an effective date is. So design for humans.
We're getting a lot of questions and comments, Jason, about the challenge. I promised you we would get to what are the unique challenges of shift-based workers. And you're presenting them in the chat. I get this is not easy. I get every organization has its own complexities and warts and challenges, and depending on how your shifts are put together, how your workforce actually operates, this has to be unique to you. There's no peanut butter spread, as we say all the time. The fact is there are 97 million shift-based workers in the United States, and we know where they work for the most part. They're food service and restaurants, they're hospitality, they're healthcare. Think about nurses and allied health and all of those that work in the healthcare vertical, higher ed, manufacturing. We had somebody, Roxanne, you mentioned manufacturing, frontline, even government, federal workers. So lots of different types of workers who in some way, shape, or manner are shift-based. And there are unique challenges. And please feel free to add them into the chat. What are some of the most pressing challenges you see in accommodating people, better serving people who are shift-based? What we know and what we understand, we serve a lot of these customers ourselves, it's fluid, super fluid, flexible. Workers who are shift-based can be transient, not always, but they can be transient, meaning your turnover is very high, people come and go into your workforce. It's usually, and you're acknowledging this, shift-based workers are the last segment of the labor market to have the empathy conversation. This probably feels like Greek to you if you're supporting this type of workforce or if you've been in this type of workforce. When I was preparing this content, and I was speaking with the folks at When I Work, I was thinking about all of the customers we serve. I was sort of observing my own everyday experience. Jason, do you know what a clopening is?
No.
A clopening, closing one night, opening the next morning. These are the realities of people who work crazy shifts. I saw this during our company retreat, Jason, when we went off-site together as a company. We had dinner together one night. I went back to that very same place for coffee and a donut the next morning, and I saw the same people working that I saw closing the restaurant the night before. That's clopening, closing and then opening right away. So how do you provide flexibility and empathy? How do you use tools and systems to avoid less than ideal shift scheduling like that?
Oh, Jess, Tracy just said, holy cow, you know clopens.
That's right, wow. Tracy. And I want to add this. These types of employees, shift-based workers, have not traditionally had the power and the permission to self-advocate, to say this doesn't work for me, to request accommodation, to request flexibility. Sometimes they don't necessarily expect the dignity of work that some of us who are knowledge workers, who are salaried, who have professional jobs in other industries or verticals, we might take this for granted, Jason. I know for a fact some of us take this for granted. The fact that that some shift-based workers don't feel like they can say that this schedule doesn't work for me, this shift doesn't work for me. They have to fill a shift or risk losing employment, or they rely on income in such a way that they have to take less than ideal shift schedules. I don't know why this segment of 97 million people should feel like that's acceptable or that's okay, where they don't expect the same dignity of work that the rest of us can request. I saw the comment earlier, we're working 10s and 12s right now. We can't offer that kind of flexibility. We're barely getting by as it is. That's the reality. So those are some of the challenges, Jason, that some are facing in this segment of the labor force. You look like you have a comment. There's a lot of chat.
Yeah, there is a lot of chat, and I love it. I mean, it's really design. I mean, I hate to go back to it. It's design.
Yeah.
It's designing to understand the people. And I totally understand. Roxanne just made a comment that has me, how do I say it? Empathetic. You know, I've mentioned in manufacturing we have no flexibility.
Yeah.
We have to run everything in a certain order and have people in certain places. We can't support time off easily, and we can't support shifts. Manufacturing can be incredibly rigid. So, Roxanne, my advice is all that stuff you just said, infuse empathy into those things. If you can't change those things, infuse empathy into those things. And Roxanne, your comment is so spot on to me that, like, I'll put my LinkedIn information in here. Like, I'm happy to one-on-one chat with you about how we do this with manufacturing customers, because you can do this. But it's just not treating people like robots only. It's treating them like people first, and then still making sure you've got that rigidity, tied in. So, Jess, I know we want to talk about these 5 things.
Yeah. I'm skipping the poll.
And just what Roxanne, I know you're empathetic, and I know you're very close to your staff, which is awesome. But there are still ways, little things. This is, by the way, just last thing I'll say, Jess, on this topic. There's a difference between transactions and interactions. A transaction is just a set of things, like a shift schedule. An interaction is a shift schedule with love. Okay? A shift schedule with love. I know that sounds weird, but the fact that, hey, I took into account the fact that you had a graduation. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what makes people feel like you understand them, and that's what makes people feel that you, like, care about them. Oh, and by the way, because that was written in their comments on their schedule request, at the end of the day, how about a quick email that says, how was the graduation? Holy shit, stop. I mean, holy crap, my company cares about me. That's what empathy is, you guys. Personalization, relevance. And we can do that at scale with digitization. Sorry, Jess, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm going to get straight. We had a poll. We're going to skip it right now, asking you to rank your ability to show empathy. You're already kind of giving me a sense of that in the chat. We'll come back to it if we want to formally poll ourselves and see how we're doing. But we saw the interesting stats in the beginning. I really want to get to these 5 things because people are saying, yes, but how? Yes, but how? Yes, but how? The first one is, you just touched on it, Jason, create opportunities for connection, understanding, and appreciation. Jason, we say connection and not connecting. Why do we say that?
Well, I mean, forever, you guys, in the HR tech space, we've been focused on getting people connected. What I want to do is I want to build connection. And Lua just said it. As a longtime user of When I Work, they make those kinds of empathetic scheduling and communications easy. You can put a shift note on the request for time off and a chat spot where you can follow up on the graduation. Like, that's a journey. That's an employee experience additive event that adds so much to someone that you ask them how it was versus just a transaction. I need a day off. It never goes anywhere. Even my new baby in my group gets a baby blanket. Probably not feasible for everyone. Michelle, it is feasible if your company digitizes at scale. I can't go. I can't go there yet. Jess is knowing I'm going to dive through the screen. But Carrie, I can't wait. We have to make sure we save a minute for that, Jess.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But we talk about the managers do need to become more human. You need to check in on, not check up on. You need to monitor productivity and how people are able to get their jobs done, not their output. We're not humans, producing widgets and output. And so there's a couple of differences in how you go about that. But yes, we're going to come back to that. Redefine culture. So many of you have said this doesn't feel like we've ever been able to do this. This is too much change. This isn't how we operate. This isn't how we think about work. Do we really deserve empathy? I can tell you a generation or two ago, no, this would be a very woo-woo sort of conversation. But culture is less about rituals and norms. This is my challenge to you. And more about how work gets done. And now that everything has changed about work, workers, the workplace, we're becoming a digital organization, digital work. You have to redefine culture, or it's just going to happen. And if you're not defining it and being intentional and strategic about how work feels, I'm telling you, it's not going to feel all that good. Even here at LeapGen, we're a virtual company. We're a virtual firm. Establish guidelines. Tell people what your digital culture looks and feels like, even in terms of how you connect and communicate in or outside of work hours, how you schedule meetings, what you send via email, how you prep each other for, those are all small things, but those are ways that you can intentionally control and define how you want work to look and feel. And I'm telling you, if you're not intentional about it, people will just do whatever comes naturally to get by, and what comes naturally is old. Those are old ways of doing things and operating, and we have to leave that behind.
Yeah, Jess. Oh, I called you Jen again, but not by mistake. I was reading
my name now.
I was reading Jennifer's note. It sends personal cards, and what's really interesting about that is, Jennifer, that might work for some. But I can tell you, if you're sending that to my 17-year-old does not like receiving old school mail. So that's what that persona comes into play for. Does that make sense? Our COO sends personalized anniversary letters to each field employee. We send baby blankets to employees who have a new child. Those are all great as long as you know that the people that you're sending that to appreciate it. There are still companies, I don't want to get too into this because it's going to take time. Jess, we need to do another session. That appreciate service awards, like your 5-year PIN. Mm-hmm. Companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these service awards when the average length of employment at a company, especially with this type of worker, is 18 weeks. So that is, if you think about that, that's the wrong type of empathy. It might mean a lot to you. It doesn't mean anything to them.
This is my own phrase, by the way. I say this all the time, but you understand, I think. Let people work like adults. Think about enabling people, empowering people, help them be productive. We're adults. We know how to work. We know how to do our job if you just get out of our way, and help us. Help us when and where and how we need it. We spend way too much time monitoring activity than enabling productivity. An example, give people the opportunity to decide how much they want to. Somebody earlier in the chat when I mentioned clopening, some people prefer that was the response. So they know the conditions they're walking back into. They left things in a certain way, a certain they have their own standards, and they know that that's exactly what they're going to walk back into. Perfect. Perfect if I can choose that for myself. Let people decide how and when, where they can show up, how many hours they want. Let them comment on the shifts that would work best for them. This is really about letting people work like adults and helping them be productive, helping them thrive, and letting them show up in the way they want to and can. Jason, anything you'd want to add on that one?
No, just from a time standpoint, we should probably move on.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about personalization of experience a lot. This is a concept in kind of human experience design or design thinking for employee experience. This is really about, again, back to understanding the workforce, not the workforce in one category as if everybody is the same, but in their unique personas and segments, where and how they work. Understand those pockets. Do your persona work. Understand their journeys, and then design journeys and solutions that make sense to them, that keep them in the flow of work. I love what When I Work says about this. Build what's best for the employee, period. Build what's best for the employee. That means you have to know the employee and understand how they work. And then real-time and relevant communication. That's a massive challenge for shift-based workers. They don't have the same systems and tools. They don't sit in office environments and seas of cubicles like the rest of us and go to, town hall meetings in the auditorium. It's different communicating with people who are ebbing and flowing in and out of the workplace and who don't have, they might not be issued a company laptop or a company email address, and they don't have Slack like I have right now. Maybe, or maybe they do. But what tools would be most useful to them? Where are you going to find and connect with them inside and outside of work hours? What channels feel most natural to them? When we said design work for humans, I'm talking about in the flow of work, complement and extend my natural human behavior, and don't make it muddy. Like, don't make it hard for me to sort of figure out. Like, it should be intuitive, easy, probably mobile, certainly useful and easy, all of the words we described earlier, actually. So those are 5 tips. And again, when we talk about being digital, we're not, just to summarize, we're not talking about technology solutions, but certainly those are going to help this conversation. We're talking about a way of being. We're talking about an organization being digital, not just doing digital. And that is the only way to think about people, design work for people, understand their journeys and the way they want to get work done and can best thrive at work, and then put the solutions in place that make sense for them. That's how we connect the dots between being digital, and that's why we say digital is the only way to show empathy at scale. I hope that made sense. When we sort of talk about the mindset and the framework that would allow you to approach this conundrum. Jason, any parting? There's ways. I'm going to pop up a couple more slides for you.
Yeah,
Again, thanks for When I Work.
Get to the how do I talk to the When I Work people, because that's great, and then get to the Friday meetup, because I want to get these people on there so we can keep talking.
Yeah. So go check out their website, or again, point your camera at this QR code. You can find a way to get in touch with the folks at When I Work. They have a very intuitive, seamless, mobile, app-based platform. If you're looking to solve some of these challenges, here's how to get in touch with LeapGen. We'll provide all of this to you after the fact, of course. And here's our Friday sessions. Please, please, please join Jason and I. We talk about this stuff all day long, but we actually go on camera on Fridays. All day long on Fridays, every single Friday, amazing lineup of guests and topics. But it's all about people, work, helping humans thrive, being real, being human. Any other questions? Jason, any parting
There's a
thoughts?
ton of questions to you guys. There's so many questions to you guys. Thank you. thewheniwork.com. Please go there. Ray, thanks for the session or the comment. Karen, thanks for being here. Thanks all you guys. I hope that you can join us on Fridays, but most of all, I hope you go to the When I Work site, schedule the demo, because what you'll see, for those of you, it doesn't even matter. When I Work might get mad at me, but for those of you that want to see software built, with an employee-first lens, look at the When I Work software. It's probably one of the best I've ever seen, and it will help you understand what's missing with the other solutions that you're looking at. Ingra, Janie, Kitty, Jalala, I'm glad you already used the tool, and great to hear it works well for your field employee. That's so awesome. When you hear customers say that, it's the best thing in the world, Jess.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer, for saying the Friday meetup's the best. Well, 3 days away, so excited to get back and do it again.
Yeah,
When I Work,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. HR Executive, thank you so much for sponsoring. HR Executive always says we have the most interactive sessions. I hope this was interactive. I hope you guys stayed awake, and once again, we built some connection for you, not just getting connected on WebEx, but a true connection. Jess, I'll let you close up. Or are we done?
That's it. That's it. I just read David's comment. So for those of you who are still hanging on, build what works for everyone, employees, executives, their families, potential and past customers, vendors, partner, the community. You know, when I was preparing this content, my mom is a lifetime nurse, career nurse. She's always been a nurse since the day she walked out of high school. She started going to nursing school, and it's all she's ever done. It's her true calling. I remember my childhood based on what shift my mom was working. She was at my grade school activities or not, depending on whether or not those were the years she was working a 3 to 11. I remember when she worked nights and what she could or couldn't do around the house, or how Dad, I literally remember my childhood memories are rooted in what shift my mom was working. It was her job, her calling, her lifetime passion, her love. And does it affect everything she does? How she shows up in the rest of her life? Yes. Does it affect her family? Yes, of course. If you can help her be happy and thrive at work, what care she can provide to her actual customers, her patients, and does that affect how she walks in the door at home? Absolutely. David, your comment hit home for me. So thank you again, everybody who participated today. Thank you for being so chatty and interactive. We loved talking with you. We can't wait to get the content out to you, and let us know if you need help. Thanks again to When I Work and HRE.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care.